I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York. We will be going into executive session at the end of this meeting to discuss personnel matters. We expect to reconvene in public session after the executive session. I'd like to read the usual public notice. The meetings of the Board of Trustees are open to the public, and the Board welcomes the interest of those who attend. The public has ample opportunity to communicate with the Board. Public hearings on the Board's policy calendar are scheduled 1 week prior to the Board's regular meetings. Members of the public who wish to communicate with the Board are invited to express their views at such public hearings. Furthermore, the Board holds additional public hearings each year in each of the 5 boroughs at which members of the public may speak. In addition, written communications to the Board are always distributed to all the trustees. The Board must carry out the functions assigned to it by law and therefore cannot tolerate conduct by members of the public that disrupts its meetings. In the event of disruptions, including noise, which interferes with Board discussion, after appropriate warning, I will ask the security staff to remove persons engaging in disruptive conduct. We may seek disciplinary and/or criminal sanctions against persons who engage in conduct that violates the university's rules or state laws, which prohibit interference with the work of public bodies. May I now request that everyone take a moment to mute your cell phones or your handheld devices. Thank you. As usual, CUNY TV is transmitting the public session of this afternoon's meeting of the Board live on cable channel 75. The meeting is also being webcast live at www.cuny.edu/livestream, providing service worldwide via personal computers. The public session of this Board meeting will be available as a podcast within 24 hours and can be accessed via the CUNY website. I'd like to extend our congratulations to Chancellor Milliken, who gave a keynote speech on Friday, October 16th, at the Association of Community College Trustees 2015 Congress in San Diego. More than 2,000 community college trustees, presidents, including Ostos Community College President David Gomez, Bronx Community College President Thomas Esekenegbe, and Kingsborough Community College President Farley Herzek, and other leaders attended this event. The Chancellor urged attendees to focus their efforts on smart, targeted programs with measurable impact, such as CUNY START and our Accelerated Study in Associate Program, ASAP, to improve completion rates for students. I was the keynote speaker at the 3rd Florida State University System Trustee Summit that took place on November 4th and 5th at Florida International University in Miami. Attendees included Florida Governor Rick Scott and some of the most prominent higher education leaders in the country. I spoke about some of the innovations that have paid off so well at CUNY, such as the Macaulay Honors College, our ASAP programs in the community colleges, and other innovations. Copies of my remarks have been distributed to all the trustees. I would like to commend Trustee Wellington Chen for working with us to create new corporate-funded scholarships, starting with 1 4-year scholarship for a new CUNY student and 5 2-year scholarships of $2,500 each. Thank you, Wellington. I also would like to thank Trustee Charles Shorter, for representing the university with distinction as a board member of the Association of Governing Boards. In fact, he just came back from the most current meeting that took place in Washington, November 18th through 20th. Thank you, Charlie. I'd like to congratulate Trustee Una Clark for being honored with a Community Service Award by the Peace Islands Institute at their fundraising event on Friday, November 20th. The Institute is one of the largest Turkish organizations in New York and in New England, fostering dialogue and promoting diversity. On behalf of the board, I would like to warmly congratulate USS Chairperson and our student trustee, Joseph Awaji, on his re-election on November 25th. Welcome back, Joseph. There will be a board and chancellery dinner with the newly elected CUNY student leaders right here in this room on Monday, December 2nd, from 6 to 8 p.m. It will give trustees a chance to meet new members of the USS Steering Committee and other student government leaders at that time. So we encourage your participation. Finally, I'm especially delighted to report that John Jay College of Criminal Justice Professor Kathy Spatz-Whittam, who is here with us this afternoon, received the 2016 Stockholm Prize in Criminology. This prestigious prize is the highest honor a scholar can achieve in the field of criminology. Dr. Whittam is an internationally recognized expert on the causes and consequences of child abuse and neglect, and her body of work is extraordinary in quantity, quality, and the impact it has had. We want to extend our warmest congratulations on this significant honor. I would like to ask President Jeremy Travis to introduce Dr. Whittam prior to inviting Dr. Whittam to say a few words. President Travis?
Thank you, Chairman Schmidt, Chancellor Milliken, members of the board, and colleagues. This is indeed a great honor, personally and professionally, to introduce to you Dr. Kathy Spatz-Whittam. In the field of criminology, the Stockholm Prize, which she has been awarded, is the ultimate recognition of a scholar's contributions to science, to our understanding of the issues of crime, delinquency, and the societal responses to these phenomena. In essence, we call it the Nobel Prize for our field. There's no one more deserving than Dr. Whittam. She is an internationally recognized scholar, recognized for her groundbreaking research on the causes and consequences of child abuse and neglect. She has devoted her life as a scholar to an exploration of the hypothesis that experiencing violence in childhood leads to the perpetration of violence in adolescence and adulthood. Her work on this topic, based on a highly original and methodologically rigorous longitudinal design, led to the publication of her article entitled Cycle of Violence in Science in 1989. The results demonstrated that childhood maltreatment increases the risk for delinquency, crime, and violence. Although in a direct challenge to conventional wisdom, she also documented that the majority of maltreated children do not go on to become delinquent, criminal, or violent. Her research has also highlighted that childhood neglect is an important form of child maltreatment by itself and should receive more attention. In fact, her research has demonstrated that neglect is also associated with long-term consequences of offending behavior. In a society that focuses mostly on childhood physical and sexual abuse, these findings have had a profound impact on the field of child protective services. Most recently, Dr. Whittam's research has challenged yet another tenet of conventional wisdom, namely the assumption that abused children will grow up to be abusive parents. Once again, these groundbreaking findings were published in her second article in Science just this past year. The widespread celebration of the fact that the International Committee has awarded the Stockholm Prize to Dr. Whittam represents more than an acknowledgement of her scholarly contributions. She's also been recognized as a leader in building the field of criminology. Her work has had a profound impact on the world of practice, including on police chiefs and child protective workers. She has testified before Congress, served on the National Academy of Sciences, National Institute of Medicine, and held leadership positions in her professional associations. And most recently, by which I mean last week, she has now filed an ambitious research proposal with NICHD to create here at CUNY a center on child abuse and neglect that would cut across the institutions of our university and engage more than 40 faculty. Closer to home, I note with pride that she is an active citizen of our college, a delightful colleague, an inspirational example of an established scholar who is every day devoted to mentoring young scholars. At the reception celebrating her award, Dr. Whittam spoke movingly to her students and gave them simple advice that has guided her career. Follow the science wherever it may lead you. It is for those qualities of integrity, persistence, and dedication to the truth that Professor Kathy Spatz Whittam has justly been awarded the Stockholm Prize. At John Jay and here at CUNY, we are proud to call her one of our own.
Dr. Whittam?
Thank you very much. Needless to say, it's an incredible honor to receive the Stockholm Prize in Criminology. It's an incredible honor for me as an individual, as a scholar, for my students, for my younger colleagues that I work with, my former students. But obviously, it's also a great honor for us at CUNY and particularly at John Jay College. And I want just to take a minute to express my appreciation to President Travis for his support, and he was the person that nominated me with others for this award, but also for his support over the past 20 years. Long before I came to John Jay College, when we met when he was the director of the National Institute of Justice. But he brought me here in 2006, and I must say that he has made a wonderful home for me here and helped me to do the work that has allowed me to receive this prize. So thank you very much.
On behalf of the board, I would like to extend our condolences to Vice Chancellor Gloriana Waters and her family on the passing of her husband, Claude Grant, on October 25th in North Carolina. Ginger, please know that you have our deepest sympathies. I'd like now to call on Trustee Valerie Beal to announce college and faculty honors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Baruch College's Master in Financial Engineering program is ranked #2 in QuantNet's biannual evaluation of programs. Rounding out the top 5 programs are that of Carnegie Mellon, Columbia University, UC Berkeley, and New York University. Congratulations. York College professor Tomas Modesto Galan was the recipient of the 2015 Poet of the Year Award at the recent America's Poetry Festival in New York. City College School of Education and Department of Physics professor Richard N. Steinberg was named a Fellow of the American Physical Society, and City College History professor Emily Gradley is headed to Serbia on a 201-216 Fulbright Scholar Award to research and write a book. CUNY School of Law earned rankings in the top 10 in the nation by the Princeton Review from both most diverse faculty and most welcoming to older students. Congratulations to all of our recipients. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I'd like now to call on Trustee Carol Robles Roman to announce student and alumni honors.
Thank you. 3 CUNY alumni were selected to the 2015-2017 class of Empire State Fellows. They are Luana Ferreira of the Graduate School, Allison Weingarten of the Hunter College's Silverman School of Social Work, and Ron Zachi of Baruch College's School of Public Affairs. And 2 CUNY School of Law students were selected for the Excelsior Service Fellows Program. They are Stephanie Rivera and Matt Grill. Congratulations. Baruch College junior Juanita Fatola was awarded the 2015 Actuarial Diversity Scholarship by the Actuarial Foundation. And for the 3rd time, Baruch's National Association of Black Accountants team won first place honors at the 2015 KPMG NABA National Case Study Competition. Congratulations. Brooklyn College MFA students Claire Barron and Sarah Delape were named inaugural winners of the Relentless Award presented by the American Playwriting Foundation and will split a $45,000 prize. This award was created last year in honor of the late Philip Seymour Hoffman. Congratulations. Hunter College alum Sasha Neha Ajuja, class of 2009, and Ryan J.S. Baxter, class of 2012, were named among City and State's 40 Under 40 New York City Rising Stars of 2015. Congratulations. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. You have on the table and in the trustees' meeting books a list of grants and gifts received by the university subsequent to our October 1st, 2015 meeting. May I now call on Chancellor Milliken to present his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today I'm going to spend most of my time discussing the budget, which is one of the most important responsibilities of this board and the administration. I want to begin by briefly mentioning the importance of the progress that we've made in one area, performance funding, which I believe holds real promise for accelerating smarter investments in our operations and improvements in how we deliver on our mission. Since we last met as a board, the executive committee, with the authority provided by this board, approved many promising investments in our 24 colleges. CUNY has had a performance management system for many years. It assesses areas such as academic quality, student success, and financial management. The new funding initiative, advocated by the governor and closely aligned with priorities of the university and our colleges, has given the colleges a chance to formulate strategies and seek funding for new targeted approaches through a competitive process. Approximately $20 million was allocated for the first stage, in which our colleges offered proposals. We evaluated the proposals and made awards based on merit. It was a rewarding process with proposals for areas such as accelerating development of online courses, increasing graduation rates, and developing new workforce initiatives. In one example, it's We Want You Back proposal. Queens College will create a system for contacting former students who left in good standing without degrees and recruit them back, offering financial aid and other assistance. Our budget request, which will be presented later this evening, includes funding for expanding and sustaining these efforts. I expect they will enhance our capabilities, provide new models, and allow us to deliver even better outcomes for our students. We are, in our budget, of course, addressing a number of other important priorities. One involves data science and data analytics. Baruch College has created 3 new business majors and 2 minors in this important field of data science and data analytics, with participation of leaders in the finance sector. We're leading a national effort with a number of financial service firms to develop new curriculum and educate more students in data analytics, and the firms are offering internships and jobs. It's a good example of a public-private partnership that I think is so beneficial to our students. I could offer examples for each priority in our request, but I want to use most of my time today to discuss more generally some thoughts on a number of interrelated issues central to the funding and success of this university. First, a topic that is always controversial, tuition. Our budget request includes support for a renewal of what has been referred to as the rational or predictable tuition policy. I know some have claimed the policy is not rational because of its impact on students and their families. think we can stipulate that no one likes tuition increases. And if I had a choice, there's no question what I would choose, that the state and the city would provide more support and the need for tuition increases would be minimized. The reality is that nationally, a general disinvestment in public higher education has taken place for decades. New York, with its historically generous tuition assistance program, has been one state that has invested more in higher education, although it's clear that CUNY's operations have not been adequately funded in the modern era. In New York, too, we've seen deep budget reductions some years, and in others, modest increases at best. In years where there were significant budget reductions, steep tuition increases, up to 37% in 1 year, went to make up for budget deficits. Two components of the tuition policy the last 5 years are notable. First, the university was allowed to spend the tuition raised on investments in students. And second, it was accompanied by a commitment from the state memorialized in a maintenance of effort provision that prevented the state from reducing the state appropriation year over year to CUNY. In all years but one, the state increased the non-tuition appropriation year over year. But as we know from the current year, when the state has not adequately funded mandatory increases in CUNY's non-discretionary budget items, such as automatic fringe benefit increases, our budgets suffer significantly. With the strong support of CUNY and SUNY, both chambers passed a more robust maintenance of effort provision in the last session that requires the state to fund increases in contractual salary and benefit obligations. We've also joined SUNY, as well as our own students and faculty and PSC and others, in urging the governor to sign this bill. CUNY representatives were in Albany as part of a larger effort just last Friday to urge the governor's support. Everyone here knows too well that our labor contracts are long out of date, and I know everyone agrees with me that we need a fair resolution. We need to do all we can to be competitive for faculty and staff. The funds to support the contract come from three sources, and I've been open with everyone, including PSC leadership, about this from early in my tenure. The sources are state and city appropriations, reallocations in existing budget, and tuition. Without additional funding from the state, that leaves reallocations and tuition. And since our budgets are approximately 80% personnel, meaningful reallocations would almost certainly include reductions in workforce. The truth is that we have too few full-time faculty now and too few academic advisors and other support staff. As we continue to enjoy record enrollments and face more demands, cutting important positions is not a constructive alternative. So that leaves tuition. These are facts. People can disagree about choices that should be made, but I don't believe they can dispute the possible sources and availability of funding. What trustees are being asked to vote on today is a request supported by the board's fiscal committee for authority to raise and invest tuition. The board is not voting on a tuition increase, as you know. That decision can be made when we have a better sense of what the state funding picture looks like. It is at least conceivable that a tuition increase may not be necessary or may be required at a level lower than authorized, but the board will make that decision later with more information. A couple of additional points that are relevant, I think. First, we've made it clear that we do not plan to ask the board to consider an increase in tuition next year for the more than 100,000 students who attend our community colleges. There are a number of reasons for this, including the fact that while our senior college tuition is quite low by national standards, our community college tuition is relatively high. And second, while tuition rates have increased in each of the last 5 years, over 65% of our undergraduates actually pay no tuition, mainly because of Pell and TAP support. It appears that the impact of relatively low tuition and significant financial aid does make a difference. CUNY enrollment during these same 5 years has grown 5%, or 13,000 students during that time, equal to the enrollment of a good-sized college. So one final point I want to address related to this subject, and that is the use of tuition revenues. Some say that we should only use it for new investments, especially investments that help students. And among the investments justly celebrated is the addition of almost 1,000 new full-time faculty over the last 5 years. That's a great thing for CUNY and for our students, and I fully support this investment. But the idea that we should not use tuition if it's the only source of available increased funding for supporting our current faculty is wrong in my view. We can make no better investment in our students than in attracting and retaining the best faculty. And as a practical matter, it's more cost-effective and valuable to retain experienced faculty than to have to replace them. So whether the source of investment is state appropriation or tuition, my priority will always be in investing in talent, because I'm convinced it has the greatest impact on our students' education and success. We have a lot of work ahead of us. We must do our best to convince the governor and the legislature to invest more in CUNY because of the incredible return on the investment it provides. We will make difficult decisions on tuition later, depending on the level of state support. We will continue to do all we can to reach a fair agreement, given our fiscal condition, with our outstanding faculty and staff. And we'll be driven by the goal of providing the best education for our students, helping them succeed in college and in life. I'll finish on a more upbeat note by mentioning an opportunity I had recently to attend a conference we organized with CUNY staff who help students apply for and obtain important awards. The keynote speaker was a Macaulay Honors Brooklyn College graduate, Zujaja Takir. Her family was forced to flee their native Pakistan when she was a girl, and they came to Staten Island. After earning her degree in history, she won a Rhodes Scholarship and spent 3 years at Oxford. She's now in her second year at Harvard Medical School. What was striking was not just her impressive achievements and maturity, but the thoughts that she shared on how CUNY award staff could help our students earn more distinctive awards. She noted that every student she was competing against for the Rhodes and the other winners were from Ivy League institutions. But she insisted that CUNY should resist the temptation to try to change our story and sound more like them. Our strength in the eyes of the judges for these awards, she insisted, is the narrative of diversity and in some cases of hardship. And that narrative is the persuasive argument we should always make. I'll close with Zujaja's words. We should leverage rather than repudiate what makes CUNY special relative to other universities. Other students are considered privileged because of access to the social and financial capital that comes with going to a privileged elite university. But I've come to realize what a privileged experience it is to be a New Yorker and to go to a university with the student population we have at CUNY. I think Zujaja was onto something. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chancellor. We'll have an opportunity for a full discussion of the budget request when the Committee on Fiscal Affairs presents the budget request, and we'll have a report from Matt Sapienza before we have that discussion. Having said that, are there comments or questions from the board about the Chancellor's report? All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chancellor, and good luck with the budget work in Albany.
You're right there with me.
We'll turn now to policy items requiring a vote. I'd like to move the adoption. Quiet, please.
Protect our mission and not keep raising. This is a sham. This is a sham. You should be ashamed of yourself. Hardship. You don't know hardship. Protect our mission. I think you owe. Protect tuition. Shame on you.
Zero.
You're the student. Ask yourself that.
I'd like to move the adoption of the Chancellor's University Report for November 23rd, 2015. You'll find a copy of this report on the table. May I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions for the Chancellor on the University Report?
Same guy.
If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The University Report is adopted. I'd like to move the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 1st, 2015. You'll find a copy of the draft minutes in your meeting books. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments about the minutes? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstention? The minutes are adopted. We'll turn next to the committee reports. We'll hear first from the Committee on Fiscal Affairs. May I call on Committee Chair Barry Schwartz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Committee on Fiscal Affairs and the Subcommittee on Audit met in a joint session on November 2, 2015. After approval of the minutes of September 9 Fiscal Affairs Committee meeting, the committee addressed policy items on the agenda and approved the following resolutions. Calendar item 3A tonight is a resolution to adopt a schedule of tuition charges for the Doctor of Medicine in Medical Education at the City College of New York, effective in the fall 2016 semester, as set forth in the schedule included in the resolution before you. The proposed tuition at the CUNY School of Medicine for full-time resident students is $19,000 per semester, and the proposed tuition for full-time non-resident students is $31,630 per semester. The program is for full-time students only, therefore no part-time tuition rate is provided. This tuition rate is the same as the rate charged by the State University of New York, SUNY Downstate, for its medical school. The City College of New York will continue to provide any financial aid assistance available to eligible medical school students, and the provost of City College came to our committee meeting to engage with the committee. Mr. Chairman, I move the approval and adoption of calendar item 3A.
Thank you. I'll second that item. Are there questions for the committee on the medical school tuition? It's a lot less than private university medical schools tuition.
Yes, it is.
Much less. All right, are you ready for the question? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstention? That tuition is adopted.
Thank you. Calendar item 3B is a resolution to authorize the General Counsel to execute a contract on behalf of the Office of the University Controller with a vendor who will provide services to migrate CUNY's current IT hosting operations to a new environment, and to provide those hosting operations on an ongoing basis in a manner that will meet CUNY's current and future needs. The hosting services estimated costs will be $6,100,000 per year for 5 years, for a total maximum value of $38,400,000, which also includes $6,400,000 for the migration services required in the first year, and an additional $1,500,000 contingency for the 5-year contract term. The contract shall include up to 5 additional 1-year options for the university to renew in its best interest. Mr. Chairman, I move the approval and adoption of calendar item 3B.
I'll second that. Are there questions for the committee on the hosting services contract?
Police reported ahead.
If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? That is adopted.
Mr. Chairman, calendar item 3C is a resolution to authorize the General Counsel to execute a contract on behalf of the School of Professional Studies to purchase graduate science seminars from the American Museum of Natural History without competitive solicitation and pursuant to law and university regulations for a term of up to 6 years from January 1, 2015 through December 31, 2020. Such purchase shall not exceed a total estimated cost of $1,935,000. The School of Professional Studies will use the science seminars to offer 13 online graduate courses in life science, earth science, and physical science, and expand educational opportunities for science teachers and access to science content for students. Associate Dean Brian Peterson attended our meeting and engaged with us. Mr. Chairman, I move the approval and adoption of calendar item 3C.
I'll second that item. Are there questions for the committee on these science seminar courses? let me say, I think it's a wonderful idea, this partnership that you're developing with the museum. They do great work, great work. Are you ready? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? That is adopted.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, calendar item 3D is a resolution to authorize the General Counsel to execute a contract on behalf of the Office of the University Controller with a vendor who will provide as needed hazardous waste removal services for central office and all of the colleges. Such purchase shall not exceed an estimated annual cost of $2 million, and the contract term shall be 5 years. The services are essential for the day-to-day operations of the college's campuses in order for them to be in compliance with the required federal, state, and local regulations with regards to the removal of hazardous waste. This is essentially a renewal of existing contracts. Feel comfortable that we are in fact compliant today, and these services will keep us in compliance. Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval and adoption of calendar item 3D.
I'll second that. Are there questions on the hazardous waste removal? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? That is adopted.
The next policy item on the agenda of the committee was calendar item 3E, which was a consideration of the fiscal year 2016-17 operating budget request. And that was presented to the committee by Vice Chancellor Sapienza, who will now make a presentation to the full board. I now call on Vice Chancellor Sapienza.
Thank you, Trustee Schwartz, and good afternoon, everyone. You have a few items in front of you. You have the budget request resolution. In addition, the budget request document, the document that included all of the narrative for all of the initiatives that are included in our request was loaded onto SharePoint. So you have that document as well. And in front of you, at each of your seats, there is a presentation on the operating budget, which is on the overhead as well, and that's what we're going to go through this afternoon. Okay, so the first item, we wanted to give you a flavor of what the current economic environment is at both the state of New York level and at the city of New York. And the report here is that it's very positive. For the current fiscal year 2016, both the state of New York, city of New York have balanced budgets. The state actually is projecting surpluses for the next 3 out years, 2017 through 2019, which is a very positive development on the state side. We know that post-recession, the state was looking at deficits of well over $10 billion. So the fact that they are now projecting surpluses for the next 3 years is a terrific thing. The city of New York, these numbers are as of the city's adopted budget. They are projecting deficits for the next 3 fiscal years. The city recently issued its November financial plan update. The numbers are slightly different, but in the same vicinity as these numbers that are reported here. So they are reporting deficits for the next 3 years. The city's overall operating budget is about $80 billion. So while there are deficits, these are certainly deficits that the city has covered before. And so, again, we're not expecting any major problems from the deficits that you see here. So overall, we're in a pretty positive economic environment with the state and city. So the Chancellor spoke earlier about the predictable tuition policy, and we wanted to spend a few minutes giving you an update as to how the last 5 years of increases, how those dollars were spent. And so as you know, the current fiscal year, 2016, is the last year of the approved tuition increases from 2011. And so for the first 4 years, fiscal year 12 through fiscal year 15, programmatic investments at our campuses of $263 million were made. Let me point out that programmatic investments mean these were monies that were spent on new initiatives at our campuses. None of the $263 million went to fill a budget shortfall. None of the $263 million went to cover a gap at our campuses. They were all for new things at our campuses, $183 million at the seniors and $80 million at the communities. Back in 2011, we said that our 2 highest priorities were investing in full-time faculty and financial aid for our students in need. And I want to commend our college presidents for implementing these investments over the last 4+ years at the campuses. They've done a tremendous job. $75 million has been provided in financial aid over that time, and $73 million has been invested in new full-time faculty. And as the Chancellor mentioned in his remarks earlier, 996 new faculty lines have been added since that time, 588 at the senior colleges and 408 at the community colleges. So those were the investments, but what was the return on our investments? What were some of the outcomes that we've had since then? Again, we've had very positive outcomes over the last 5 years. Graduation rates are up. For our baccalaureate freshmen, the 4-year rate and the 6-year rate have both increased over the last 5 years. Same for transfer students at our baccalaureate programs. The 4-year graduation rate is up. And for our associate degree students, the 4-year rate has increased by over 3 percentage points, and the 6-year rate has also increased over the last 5 years. We've granted 20% more degrees and certificates in 13-14, the academic year 13-14, almost 48,000 degrees and certificates than we did 5 years earlier. As the Chancellor mentioned earlier, our headcount enrollment has increased by 5%. Back in 2011, when the predictable tuition policy was talked about, there was a lot of concern from folks that it was going to lead to a decrease in our enrollment. The opposite has happened. We've added 13,000 new students since that time. And we've been able to leverage the increased support from both tuition and state and city support to help drive up philanthropy. Again, our college president's done a terrific job here. Annual voluntary support has increased from $169 million in fiscal year 2011 to $210 million in the last fiscal year. Academic momentum for our baccalaureate students has greatly improved as well. This is measured by the number of credits freshmen are earning in their first year, which is a critical component. 25.3 for 2009 entrance to 26.2 for the 2013 entrance. For the associate degree students at our community colleges, the percentage of students who are fully skills proficient by the end of the first year has significantly increased from 38.2% to 49.2% over the last 5 years. And the transfer rate for associate graduates to our baccalaureate programs has also risen from 60.7 to 64.2. So again, we feel not only have we made key investments in those areas that were important at our campuses, but that we've had a terrific return on our investment over the last 5 years. So that's for the last 5 years, but we also wanted to go back more in time. And this chart that is up on the screen and that you have in front of you on slide 5, we think is really illustrative to show why the predictable tuition policy is a much more effective policy for our students and their families, but also in terms of planning, financial planning for the university. So this chart goes back to 1987, and it shows the history of senior college tuition over that time. And the blue bars show the percentage increase in tuition at our senior colleges, and the red bars show the change in state aid for our senior colleges over that time. And so you can see from 1991 through 2010, there were 6 times that tuition was increased at our senior colleges from 91 to 2010. 6 times tuition was increased. However, look at those significant increases that took place in those 6 years. As the Chancellor mentioned earlier, a 37% increase in 1992, 32% in 1993, followed up by a 30% increase in 1996, and 25% in 2004. And you'll also note that in all 6 of those years where tuition was significantly increased at our senior colleges, there was an associated large decrease in state aid in each of those years. And this is the predicament that we want to avoid with the predictable tuition policy. If you look over in the chart to the last 5 years, tuition has increased every year by a modest amount of less than 10% each year. But state aid has also gone up in each of those years. 2012, there was a slight dip. The tuition policy was enacted in July 2011 after the state budget had been authorized for fiscal year 12. But in each of the last 4 years, tuition has gone up at a modest level, but state aid has also gone up. So in those years prior, in those 6 years where there were significant tuition increases, the students didn't get the benefit of those tuition dollars at all. They all went to fund budget shortfalls from diminished state aid in each of those years. So along with the tuition policy is the maintenance of effort policy. As the Chancellor mentioned earlier, the current state MOE legislation, while important, and it has protected us from going back to what took place from 1991 to 2010, it does not require the funding of mandatory cost increases, and we certainly support the revised legislation that has been passed by both the Senate and the Assembly that will require the state to fund all mandatory cost increases. On slide 7, this is a comparison of senior college tuition throughout the country at public university systems for fiscal year 2014. You can see that tan bar down towards the left-hand side is where the CUNY senior colleges reside, so we're very much on the low end of the scale. But you can see on the next slide, as the Chancellor mentioned earlier, in the community colleges, it's a different picture. We're more on the high end of the scale. We're certainly not the highest or close to the highest, but for the community colleges, we are on the higher end of the scale. So the tuition policy that we are recommending for next fiscal year, as the Chancellor noted in his remarks, we are supporting a renewal of the tuition legislation for the senior colleges so that the predictable tuition policy will continue for another 5 years. But for the community colleges, we are not planning for a tuition increase for fiscal year 2017. Our budget request assumes a flat tuition rate for the community colleges for next fiscal year. And of course, when we talk about tuition, we can't not mention the critical nature that the tuition assistance program carries. In 2011, I think, as you all know, in addition to the predictable tuition policy and the maintenance of effort, the state also passed legislation that required CUNY and SUNY to provide waiver credits to students who were receiving TAP awards that would cover the difference between the tuition rate and their TAP award, what we like to refer to as the TAP gap. And for the current fiscal year, CUNY will be issuing $49 million in TAP tuition credits to our students. $49 million that comes off the top of any additional revenue from tuition. And as part of our request this year, we are asking the state to begin to close that gap between the maximum TAP award and the tuition level at our senior colleges. Not an issue for our community colleges because we are below the maximum TAP rate at our community colleges, but we're asking the state over the next 5 years to begin to close that gap. And we'll see those numbers in just a moment. Just some more data on financial aid. The maximum TAP award for this year is $5,165, and the maximum Pell is $5,775. And in our last academic year, 14-15, CUNY administered over $550 million in Pell grants and over $290 million in TAP awards. So there is a robust financial aid system out at CUNY, Pell and TAP being the largest, but we also have many other financial aid options out there, City Council merit scholarships and individual scholarships that our campuses have. So the request for 2017, slide 12 shows a summary chart of our 3 main funding sources: state aid, city support, and tuition revenue. You can see in that second column there that our current adopted budget for this year is $3.2 billion. We are projecting that we're going to have mandatory cost increases next year at $50.4 million. And we're requesting programmatic initiative increases of $116.6 million, which would bring our total budget for fiscal 17 to over $3.4 billion. Now, I want to point out in the program changes, you see that note at the bottom of the page. The City of New York, and we're very grateful to the mayor and the city council, they have already committed to increase our 2017 budget by $32.3 million for next fiscal year, mostly for the expansion of ASAP and for the Mayor's STEM Support Initiative. So that money is already in our financial plan for next year. The city has already committed to that over the last 2 financial plans that have been approved by the City Council. So in addition to that $10 million that we're asking in programmatic support from the city for next year, we already have booked and committed 32.3 in city support for next year for our community colleges. Slide 13 shows a different look at the funding sources, and this is for our last fiscal year 2015. And you can see the pie slices for the senior colleges and the community colleges. So senior colleges on the left-hand side, 53% comes from state aid, 46% from tuition, 1% from city support. But if you break that tuition slice down by how much comes from TAP and how much comes from Pell, you can see that almost 15% combined comes from TAP and Pell, which reduces the amount that our students are paying out of pocket to 31%. And at the community colleges, the difference is even greater. 32% of the community college budget in fiscal 15 came from the city, 27 from the state, and 41 from tuition. However, again, breaking that out for TAP and Pell, of that 41%, 13% came from Pell, 11% from TAP, and 17% from out-of-pocket costs from our students. And a further look at where we are in the current year and where we're projected to be as per our request. For the senior colleges for this year, we're at 52% from state aid, 47% from tuition, and 1% from city. And even though our request assumes a $300 increase for the senior colleges next year, if our request is funded at the level that we are asking for, the amount of our budget that would come from tuition at the senior colleges would actually go down next year to 46%. State aid would go up by 53%. And the disparity is even greater, and the decline is even greater at the community colleges for next year. The current year at the community colleges, you see at the bottom of the page, 42% tuition, 26% state aid, 32% city. And if our request is funded at the level we're asking, and because we are planning to freeze community college tuition next year, the amount that would come from tuition would actually go down by 3 percentage points to 39%. State aid would increase to 27%, city support to 34%. Slide 15 shows a summary of the investment plan request that is included for next year, $116.6 million, as we said earlier. I'm not going to go through all of these items. They're part of the budget request narrative that we loaded onto SharePoint. I'll just point out a few of them. The medical school, we spoke earlier about and passed a resolution for the tuition rate for the medical school, which is opening in fall 2016. Performance improvement plan, which is the next item. This is something that the governor advocated for, and we're very pleased that we had a $12 million addition to our budget in the current year. That, as the chancellor talked about earlier, we had the executive committee of the board approved several weeks ago, and we rolled those dollars out to the campuses. We're asking for that $12 million to be appropriated again next year and to double to $24 million. And I want to point out the community college graduates scholarship item, which is the 4th item down. This is something that the chancellor has proposed that would provide financial aid assistance to our graduates from associate degree programs in our community colleges that then attend our senior colleges. This would provide scholarship opportunities for them. And of course, the largest investment, as we've talked about several times, will continue to be investment in our faculty, not only our current faculty, but for new faculty as well. Our mandatory cost increases, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, we project to be $50.4 million for next year. The largest component of this continues to be fringe benefits, $29.5 million at the senior colleges. On the community colleges, the city has already committed to increasing our fringe benefits budget by $7 million for next year, and so we are funded for our community college fringe benefit increases for next year. Energy costs, building rentals, contractual salary increments are always large components of our mandatory cost increases. And collective bargaining, we're in negotiations with our unions, as was mentioned earlier, and so we have it there as a TBD. And so how would we finance the request of $167 million? Well, we're asking the state and city to fully cover the cost of the mandatory needs of $50.4 million, which you see broken out there in the first row and in the fifth row. We're asking the state and city to fund a portion of our strategic investments, $31.3 million at the senior colleges from the state, $10 million from the city for strategic investments at our community colleges. As we talked about earlier, we're asking the state to begin to cover the TAP gap. And so over the next 5 years, we're asking the state to cover that gap. So we're requesting $10 million next year for our senior colleges. And then in that fourth row, the community college state aid increase, we're asking the state for the next 3 years to commit to a $250 increase in the base aid per FTE student at our community colleges, which would generate $26.3 million for next year. The community colleges in the state
Quiet,
of New York.
please. Escort him out, would you please? Thank you.
The community college base aid rate this year is $2,597 per FTE. We're very grateful to the state, the governor, and the legislature. And the legislature has been ardent supporters of the community colleges over the last 4 years.
Addressing a budget shortfall, you're just changing the burden from tuition on the people from the state. You're just saying, you literally said you're not even changing the budget shortfall.
You can escort him out, please.
You're not even changing the budget shortfall, you're just making students pay more tuition and makes the state pay less money. That's literally all you're doing.
Go ahead, Matt.
So we've had 4 straight years of increases in state support for community colleges, which we're very grateful for. But those 4 years are following 4 straight years of decline in the base aid rate per FTE that we receive from the state. So just to give you a comparison, this year the rate, as I said earlier, was $2,597 per FTE. In 2009, the base aid rate was $2,675 per FTE. So we're below the 2009 rate. And certainly, if we took that 2009 rate and applied inflation on top of that, we're well below where we should be in 2016. And so we're asking for a $250 increase for next year and for each of the next 3 years, and that would generate $26.3 million. And lastly, the tuition revenue at the senior college is $51 million, offset by the amount that we would have to use for TAP waivers, which would be 12, a net increase of $39 million for the senior colleges, and of course, none at the community colleges due to the freeze for next year. So we're presenting the request to you this evening. If it is approved this evening, we will then share it with our elected officials in both Albany and down at City Hall. We've already had preliminary discussions with the State Division of Budget and the City Office of Management and Budget on our request. The executive budget from the governor will be issued sometime in mid-January, and then later in the month, the mayor will issue his preliminary budget for 2017. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report. I'm happy to take questions. Before I do so, I'd just like to take a moment to recognize the terrific work that was done by our University Budget Director, Kathy Abada, and the staff in the University Budget Office in putting together the request. And I really want to thank all our constituents that we worked with in putting the request together, our college presidents, the University Faculty Senate, and the University Student Senate. Both groups, all 3 groups provided terrific input on the request, and very grateful to them for their good thinking.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Sapienza. Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, before I move the approval of this item, I'd just like to point out for the board, you have received on November 19 a summary of the proceedings at a public hearing, which is last Monday, where 68 people asked to speak, and I think 46 or 47 did speak. And if I could synthesize what most of them said who addressed the issue of the budget. They were of the view that we should reject tuition increases unless it's a last resort. The governor needs to sign the maintenance of effort legislation when it's presented to him. We should look for alternative public funding sources, and we should modernize TAP, which I understood to be we should get TAP to be increased to the level of tuition. That having been said, Mr. Chairman, I move the approval and adoption of calendar item 3E.
I'll second that. Are there comments? Joseph?
Yes, for the record, I have a few comments I would like to read to submit to the record. Thank you, Chairman Schmidt. The budget request before us today makes great investment into the crucial programmatic areas of the university that can provide, so that it can provide the high-quality services in the support of its statutory mission and its commitment to all New Yorkers. I think we all agree that we need to continue to invest in the program that make CUNY unique, our outstanding faculty, and our students. There is one component of the budget which I definitely disagree with. The budget request relies on tuition hikes and supports the extension of rational tuition plan that will effectively continue to raise tuition at a rate of up to $300 per year at the CUNY senior colleges. Although I'm encouraged by the shift in CUNY's tuition plan at the community colleges with a proposed one-year abeyance, it's important to note that as a student and as a chairperson of the University Student Senate, I'm unequivocally opposed to any CUNY tuition hikes. I know I speak for the vast majority of the students when I say that we are frustrated and disappointed at the budget request. Yesterday afternoon, the University Student Senate voted for the second time this year to adopt a resolution to reject the extension of the rational tuition plan. At the board public hearing last week, dozens of CUNY students testified in support of the USS resolution and called on the board to reject any extension of tuition hikes. If you were at the hearing last week, you saw Ms. Tamika Grisby, a student at Brooklyn College, bring her baby to the podium in Australia. Ms. Grisby graduated from LaGuardia and is now a single mother trying to earn her bachelor's degree. She has worked several jobs to cover increasing living expenses while attending CUNY. But she said, quote, "An increase in my tuition will hinder my ability to complete my degree, and I will be forced to drop out due to lack of financial support," unquote. I've heard stories like this countless times over the past years. But the students did not just ask for tuition freeze, they provide solutions. The student called on Governor Cuomo to sign the maintenance of effort bill. And once again, I repeat, the student called on Governor Cuomo to sign the maintenance of effort bill. Called on the state legislators to modernize the state TAP program to meet the needs of students. And called on the board to actively seek public funding sources for the CUNY's operating and program expenses instead of the proposed tuition increase. The budget request is just that, a request. CUNY chose to request an extension of the tuition hike instead of requesting for a greater state funding and confirmed that the university is consenting to an inadequate public funding. I've heard some compare our tuition rates to those of other institutions in an effort to justify our tuition hikes. In 2010, Trustee Panatello employed an effective and simple two-question analysis to inform his decision on tuition increases. The first question was, is it necessary? And the second, is it reasonable? I think we should all ask ourselves these same questions today. I think the first question about the necessity of tuition increases cannot be answered because our board has yet to request the full amount from the state. It cannot be necessary if we do not ask and get rejected. On the second question, the best way to determine reasonableness is to look at the comparability of what other universities and states are doing. Our state's financial position has considerably improved since 2010. In fact, our state has a surplus over $1 billion. Across the country, other states have begun investing into university and freezing tuition for multiple years. Penn State University had called for a second consecutive tuition freeze for in-state tuition in 2016-2017. The 2015-2016 tuition freeze was Penn State's first in 49 years. Tuition at the University of California remained frozen through the 2016-2017 school year. The Iowa State University Board of Trustees will vote next month on another freeze for all tuition for the 2016-2017 school year for the state three public universities. This past September, Missouri Governor Nixon announced an agreement to freeze tuition for Missouri undergrads for the 2016-2017 school year. I ask this board to consider my request. CUNY is different, and we should be leading the calls for reinvestment in public higher education. Chairman Schmidt, I cannot approve the budget request as it currently stands because it expresses support for a tuition extension of tuition increase. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments or questions about the budget request? Yes, Trustee Clark.
Because I am on the fiscal affairs and also want to have a full understanding of where we're going as trustees, have we asked for this maintenance of effort because it is necessary that we put in the document the request, but the request should be backed up by our commitment as trustees either to talk to the governor, talk to the mayor, talk to the federal government to be able to put some money in, and we should at least be on record as saying we want to support the students and that this is going to be our last resort to do the increase, but the request has to be there so that if nothing happens, then we know what we're going to be doing next.
People are being discriminated for their sexuality, their gender, and their race on campus.
I just want to go on record as saying that as a trustee, because I understand how budgets are put together, voted on budget, that I'd be very willing to be supportive and to be helpful as much as I can be.
We are also under surveillance in Brooklyn College.
You want me to respond?
Speak their mind and gather together as peaceful students.
Trustee Clark, I'd briefly respond to your points, with which I agree and my colleagues agree, and we have advocated during the last session for the maintenance of effort provision, which was passed, I believe, almost unanimously in both houses. It's now awaiting a determination by the governor. We have continued to urge his support for that, and we will urge a strong maintenance of effort provision in the next cycle as well. So this board is, I think, technically by your representatives, me and my colleagues, on record as supporting it, but we'd certainly appreciate your comments of additional support, and we will convey that.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions about the budget request? All right, then, if you're ready for the question, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 1. 2. Any abstentions? All right, the budget request is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With no more items on the agenda for the Fiscal Affairs Committee, that meeting was adjourned and the Subcommittee on Audit was convened by my colleague to my left, the Chair, Trustee Peter Pantaleo, which proceeded to approve the minutes of June 1, 2015 of the Audit Subcommittee meeting. Following the approval of those minutes, KPMG, our outside auditors, made a presentation on the fiscal year 2015 audited financial statements. After that presentation, the subcommittee proceeded to approve the resolution calling for the approval of the fiscal year 2015 audited financial statements presented by KPMG. The subcommittee then went into executive session and first met with KPMG without management, and then subsequently with management without KPMG. With no more items on the agenda, the chair adjourned that meeting. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. We'll hear next from the Committee on Academic Policy, Programs, and Research. May I call on Committee Chair Wellington Chen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At its November 2nd, 2015 meeting, the committee approved the following policy matters. Calendar item number 4A, Hostels Community College Associate Science in Food Studies. The generous support of the Tisch Illumination Fund of $150,000 allow Hostels Community College to develop this proposal for an AS in Food Studies. This program will introduce students to public policy issues such as food insecurity, nutritional education, and healthy food access. The curriculum and the experiential opportunities For the students enrolled in this program will well-prepared students for transfer to a senior college as well as careers in food policy-related fields. Calendar item number 4B, Hunter College, Master of Science in Applied Behavioral Analysis. Changes in the educational requirements for professionals working with individuals with autism spectrum disorder provided Hunter College with the opportunity to propose this new master's degrees through their School of Education. Individuals completing this program will have the necessary academic preparation for a state license to work with this growing population. Calendar number item 4C, Hunter College, creation of a Department of Dance. Its interest in the existing academic programs in dance continues to rise, and the college launches new graduate programs. It is only fitting that the discipline be established as an independent department. The creation of this department is serious investment, the physical plan used by the dance programs, and a successful search for a nationally recognized leader in dance education to serve as a department chair has reaffirmed Hunter's College's commitment to the arts and arts education. Calendar number item 4D, Bronx Community College Associate of Arts in English. This initiative seeks to afford students interested in studying literature to self-identify early in their BCC career and take advantage of faculty and advisors who can help them achieve their academic goals and to prepare them well to transfer to a senior college upon graduation. An articulation agreement has already been signed with John Jay College, and others will be developed. Calendar number 4E, Bronx Community College, Associate Science in Exercise Science and Kinesiology. This program will offer students the necessary foundational coursework for senior college majors and careers in health sciences and related fields, as well as provide students with the coursework necessary to be certified as a personal fitness trainer. An articulation agreement has been established with Lehman College, and others will be pursued. Calendar number 4F, Lehman College, Bachelor of Science in Public Health. This undergraduate program in public health will provide students with an excellent foundation for entry employment in public health, as well as graduate education in the field. The program views the field of public health from the perspective of the social and behavioral sciences, epidemiology, environmental health, communication, and healthcare systems and policy. Calendar numbers 4G, John Jay College, rescission of honorary degree to William Cosby. By resolution of Faculty Senate of the college and the concurrence of President Travis and the college requests the board to rescind the honorary degree previously awarded to William Cosby on the ground that he has engaged in conduct that's contrary to the value of the college and the qualities for which he was honored. While some colleges and universities are either reviewing similar requests or have not acted to rescind an honorary degree previously awarded to Mr. Cosby, other schools have rescinded degrees conferred upon Mr. Crosby, include Brown University, Fordham University, Boston University, Drexel University, University of Pittsburgh, Drew University, Marquette University, Tufts University, Goucher College, Lehigh University, University of San Francisco, Wilkes University, and Baylor University. Item 4A through 4G were approved by the committee, and I recommend their approval.
All right, I'll second that motion. Are there questions for the committee on any of these items? Trustee Beal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me state, first of all, that I find the actions of Bill Cosby to be deplorable, and that my vote against item 4G in no way supports his actions. However, I also believe that it has been the policy of this university to have governance rules and policies in effect prior to making decisions and that may or may not impact one person or any number of people. To my knowledge, this is the first rescission of an honorary degree that this university has done, and it is doing so without us having passed any policy regarding the rescission of honorary degrees. the chair mentioned certain universities that have rescinded, but in my review of them, that a number of universities first passed resolutions as to how they would or would not handle the rescission of honorary degrees. When I first saw this resolution, I asked, rather than us moving against one individual without having researched whether there may be others who may fall into this, that we pass a policy that addresses the rescission of honorary degrees. To me, to move forward on one without having a policy in place as to how one campus and all of the campuses proceed, I think is arbitrary and not consistent with how my understanding of how this university governs itself. And so while I understand the concern about Dr. Cosby, or Mr. Cosby as the case may be, I am more concerned that we as a university make sure that we are consistent in how we apply our rules and regulations going forward. So today I stand and ask that we not approve this resolution.
Would you approve the other items and number 4, the academic changes that the committee wants to present?
I concur with the other actions.
I think then that the best way for us to proceed is to divide this motion into two segments. The first would be items 4A through 4F, which are the academic program changes that the committee approved. So let's take up the academic program changes first. Are there other comments about the academic programs the committee has presented? Yes.
Out of their own city university in New York. We demand open admissions.
I would like to, on the item G, I support the University Faculty Senate's request. I feel that there are times when one has to do what they think is right. I think this is definitely the time to do what we think is right. Women's lives matter. And that's why it's very important for us to support the Faculty Senate with this particular item.
Thank you. We're going to take up the honorary degree item as a separate motion. So the first motion is on the program changes approved by the committee. Are there questions or comments on the program changes, 4A through 4F? All right, seeing none. All in favor of those items, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That carries. Now we'll have, as a separate motion, item 4G, the rescission of the honorary degree for Mr. Cosby from the John Jay Senate. The committee approved that. We've had a couple of comments, one opposed to the motion, one in favor. Are there other comments? Yes, Trustee Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am in 100% agreement with Trustee Beal. I would like to add a quote that actually she shared with us from George Washington University, which I think also backs up our sentiments. It says, while we are shocked and disturbed by the allegations against Mr. Cosby, honorary degrees are conferred at a moment in time based on what the university knows about the honoree at that time. And it is for that reason, as well as the reason so well stated by Trustee Beal, that I disagree with this move.
Thank you. Are there other comments about item 4G?
Mr. Chairman, just a point of clarification for the comment made by Trustee Barry. This is a resolution we're asked to review of the Faculty Senate of John Jay College, correct?
Correct.
Just of John Jay.
Just of John Jay.
Right. Thank you.
Correct. All right. Are you ready for the question? Trustee Clark.
I just wanted to find out, for my own edification, I know that both Trustee Beal as well as Foster asked, was there any policy at a point in time when one gets an honorary doctorate? What are the conditions? Were there things that he had to do in return, I don't understand, so I just want to make sure, because some people get an honorary degree because they've made big endowment in an institution, and as a result, they get something. I just wanted to get on the table what it is that he did that earned him his doctorate there.
President Travis, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this opportunity to address the issues that have been raised by the trustees. First, let me just make clear that there's no factual disagreement with Trustee Beal's observation that this is, to the best of our knowledge, the first time in the history of the university that there's been a request for rescission of a degree, honorary degree, previously awarded. Nevertheless, I want to say that it's my position, as well as it is the position of the Faculty Senate at John Jay, that we should, in this case, rescind the honorary degree that previously was awarded in 1995 by John Jay. As the board knows, the process for awarding honorary degrees, although it ultimately is a decision of this board, is in the first instance a recommendation by the faculty. So in the case of John Jay, our practice is that the Faculty Senate makes recommendations after consideration of individuals and their scholarly contributions or other civic contributions, makes recommendations to me, which I then pass along after my review ultimately to the board through the chancellor. And in this case, it is again the faculty who, in the case of Mr. Cosby, have recommended to this board, as they recommended in 1995 that the degree be awarded, they now recommend that the degree be rescinded. This is a recommendation not made lightly. This is a recommendation made after consideration of a record that is now a public record, including admissions by Mr. Cosby, that he engaged in behavior that ultimately resulted in the violent sexual assault of women who, now 50 of whom, who have come forward. This acknowledgement made by him under oath in a deposition that has since been released to the public is coming at a time when there are 50 women who have come forward to complain about, sometimes in public court proceedings, sometimes just to the press, to complain about his proceeding, about his conduct. So the request being made by the faculty at John Jay that I have endorsed, that has now been recommended to this board by the committee of this board, is that his degree be rescinded. We are not the first university to do this, and not all other universities had policies as to how a matter like this should be considered. So this is, granted, in the first instance, something we're considering for the first time, but we think sometimes we have to do, as Trustee Berry said, we have to do what we consider to be the right thing. Other universities that have preceded this university in taking similar action include Boston University, Baylor University, Brown University, Fordham University, Marquette. There's a long list of them that have come to exactly this point, to do something that's not previously been done, in most cases by their boards of trustees. So we're not asking the board, I am not asking, the faculty is not asking the board to do something that's not without precedent in other higher education institutions, some of them quite prestigious, nor are we asking the board to do something that has not been done by other higher education institutions without guidance, without policy. So we are asking the board to do what we think is the right thing. In this case, Mr. Cosby has been awarded an honorary degree by our university that every time we now have our commencement proceedings stands in front of the students who are graduating. We think that he has dishonored this university by his behavior that has subsequently come to our public attention, and that he is admitted to under oath and deposition. So we are asking the board to consider a record that he has established since we honored him that we think requires, in our view, that the board withdraw the honor that we awarded to him.
Thank you very much. Are there other comments on this matter? Trustee Pantaleo?
I'm violating a solemn pledge I made to myself never to talk about honorary degrees again. But on this one, I feel a bit compelled. I share Trustee Clark's sort of just general bewilderment about how this is done in the first place, but my view has been relatively simple. We give honorary degrees to people who have achieved something of distinction in their life, and by honoring them with the distinction we can confer upon them, we get to bask in their reflected glory for their lifetime of achievement. We have done that, all universities do it, and it is a good thing. It is a sort of a symmetrical granting of honors where a university shares with someone who may not have gone to this university, may not have any connection to the university, but with whom the university aspires to be connected with. So we grant an honorary degree. I don't know what the policy says about granting a degree, but the process is simple. We want to be better by associating with those who have acted with distinction in their life. In an unfortunate circumstance where someone may have acted in distinction, with distinction in their life, and then acted in a way that brought disgrace upon themselves, we are left with the situation of, we wanted to share in their distinction, but I see no reason why the university should stand by and share in the shame. And so because of that, irrespective of, and I respect Trustee Beal's position immensely because I think it has all of the elements of concern that due process always has, in this context, I would say, I don't think we need to be that formal. Do we wish to be affiliated in a way, in a position of having granted, having bestowed, and then allowing to maintain an honor for an individual who has acted in a way and comported themselves in a way that brought disgrace upon themselves and then directly upon us? We can't erase the taint of an affiliation with someone with a problem, but we can certainly stop it by simply saying, we did it, we are now revoking it, and I would support doing so.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Are you ready for the question? All right, this is a motion solely on item 4G, the honorary degree. That's all this motion is about. All in favor of the rescission of the honorary degree, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
1, 2, 3. 3 opposed votes. Any abstentions? All right, item 4G carries by a majority vote. Thank you very much. We'll turn now to the Committee on Faculty, Staff, and Administration. I'd like to call on Chair Valerie Beal to present those items from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Right here. Okay, gotcha. Number 5.
I will now present for the board's approval the matters that the Committee for Faculty, Staff, and Administration considered at its meeting on November 2nd. Calendar item 5A pertains to amendments to the governance plan at Hunter College. The proposed amendments update the governance plan to reflect the college's current organizational structure. Among other changes, the proposed plan includes the School of Urban Public Health as a department entitled to representation and recognizes that the schools of nursing, health professions, and urban and public health comprise a division. The proposed amendments also provide for an additional term for the Senate's chair and vice chair and redefine the terms of office for representatives to avoid conflicts with student exam periods. The Committee on Faculty, Staff, and Administration has reviewed this matter and recommends its approval. Mr. Chair, I present item 5A for the board's consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a second to this item? Is there a second to this item, please? Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. That item passes. Next item, please, Chair Bill.
Calendar items 5B, 5C, and 5D are naming opportunities at Queens College, which I will present as a group. I wish to note that the monetary gifts associated with these namings total almost $1.5 million. They are the Claude Palseka Collaborative Research and Study Area, the Saul Novak Studio and Practice Room, and the Charles W. Weeks Faculty Lounge and Conference Room. Mr. Chair, I present items 5B, C, and D for the board's consideration.
Thank you very much. I second that. On those items, B, C, and D, are there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. That item passes.
Calendar
Item
item.
E.
Calendar item 5E amends the university's optional retirement plan and tax-deferred annuity plan, hereafter referred to as ORP and TDA plan. You will recall that in January 2014, the board adopted an investment policy statement to guide the ORP and TDA plan. Subsequently, last June, the board adopted a restated ORP plan document. The recommendations were submitted to you today are the result of almost 2 years of work by the board's Pension Advisory Task Force, which I lead, and Trustee Terrence Martell, and is comprised of representatives from the offices of General Counsel, Budget and Finance, and Human Resources Management. With the assistance of a consultant, CAMAC Retirement, we have diligently examined the university retirement plans and renewing best practice throughout the industry and at other institutions of higher education. I would like to note that simply by initiating the review, we have been able to reduce some fees charged to plan participants by approximately $1.6 million a year, and we continue to negotiate lower fees. It is therefore with a great sense of accomplishment that I present these initial recommendations. The 5 provisions of this resolution implement changes to the operation of the ORP and TDA plan that will improve the university's ability to properly administer the plans, reduce costs, and enhance the investment options available to participants. The resolution adds a Roth account option to the TDA plan. This is a valuable savings option that allows participants to contribute on an after-tax basis. The TDA plan currently offers participants a range of annuity accounts as investment option. The resolution recommends offering mutual funds to enhance the investment choices available to participants and authorizes the Committee on Faculty, Staff, and Administration to review the mutual funds available. The resolution proposes establishing revenue credit accounts for both the ORP and the TDA plan. A revenue credit account is funded by an investment provider, such as TIAA-CREF, from excess earned revenue above what is needed to service the plans. This will provide CUNY with additional resources to operate both plans. Each year, TIAA-CREF will calculate the amount that it will contribute to the accounts based on revenues in excess of a target amount agreed to by CUNY. It is important to note that funds in the revenue credit accounts belong to the representative plans and not to the university. Therefore, the plans can only be used for certain expenses associated with operating the plans or as additional contributions to participants' accounts. The Vice Chancellor for Human Resources Management will report to the board annually on expenditures paid out of either revenue credit account. The resolution proposes eliminating the 15-year catch-up election. The IRS has a special rule that allows an employee who has completed 15 years of service with CUNY to contribute an additional amount to the TDA plan if his or her previous contributions were significantly less. The formula for determining the catch-up amount is very complex and requires considerable data from both CUNY and the fund record keepers. Calculation errors can result in tax liabilities to the employee and potential IRS funds for the university. Currently, only a small number of employees benefit from this rule, and we have determined that it makes sense to eliminate the option. Finally, the resolution limits the total number of outstanding loans from both plans to 5 and prohibits new loans from being issued to a participant who has previously defaulted. Our review has shown that some participants have many loans outstanding simultaneously, as well as an unacceptable default rate. The IRS limits the amount of money that participants can borrow from their retirement accounts, but the university places no restrictions on the number of loans that participants can take from the ORP and the TDA plan. This represents a significant change in CUNY's current policy, but one consistent with best practices in the retirement plans of higher education institutions around the country. I'm pleased to add that this has been vetted with the university's various unions and as well as the staff of the administration. Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to present item 5E for the committee's consideration.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion or question on this item? I'd like to, first of all, thank Vice Chancellor Waters and also the committee for all of the work that they've done on this. Chair Bill, you were also chairing that committee that did some of the work, and this is an outstanding effort. If there are no more questions, all of those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It passes. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you wish to report, Chair Bill?
The task force is continuing its important work, and we will bring additional recommendations to the board in the next few months. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much for that item. I'd like to now call on Chair Foster to present for the Committee of Facilities and Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Trustees Committee on Facilities Planning and Management considered one item at its meeting of November 2nd, 2015. This item is listed in this board meeting's calendar as item 6A, and it is regarding the 5-year capital budget request for fiscal year 2016-17 and through fiscal year 2020 through 21. Every year, the university is required to submit a 5-year capital plan to the State Division of Budget and City Office of Management and Budget. As in previous plans, the fiscal year 2016-2017 through fiscal year 2020 to 2021 request focuses on completion of existing projects in critical health, safety, code compliance, and rehabilitation projects, while recognizing the need for expansion and modernization of facilities as called for in campus master plans. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chancellor Judith Bertram for a brief presentation explaining this resolution.
I'm going to be speaking about this packet that everybody has in front of them. Our request is prioritized per Board of Trustees approved goals, some of which are listed on the slides in front of you. The state of good repair, continue CUNY's critical maintenance program to upgrade existing facilities and infrastructure, complete ongoing partially funded projects such as renovation of the 17 Lex building at Baruch College, Bronx Community College's campus-wide utility upgrade, and Queens College's Remsen Hall upgrade. Continue to request funds for important strategic initiatives, such as Brooklyn College's Roosevelt Science Building, Hostos's Allied Health and Science Building, York College's Academic Village and Conference Center, and Medgar Evers Classroom and Student Union Building. To upgrade technology across the university, such as CUNY First and funds to purchase science and educational technology equipment. Energy conservation and performance, request funds to comply with State Executive Order 88 and City Local Law 87, as well as funding to continue the CUNY 2020 initiative. On the next slide, every year CUNY completes a 5-year request. The process allows CUNY to track and plan details of its programs, which include hundreds of projects, some of which are phased and some of which are partially funded. This request creates a consistent message of need for the university. The capital budget request process takes over 6 months to develop and is very collaborative. The process starts right after the state budget ends in April. Meetings are held with every colleges where we discuss progress of the existing construction program, discuss campus priorities, and issues related to cost, procurement, and construction. Over the summer, staff refines details of projects, incorporates the results of the state and city budget, and updates scopes and costs. Before the program reaches the trustees today, presidents sign off
on their college program, including a priority of their projects. This is a summary of the 5-year request. $6.8 billion, which is in line with our request last year. Seniors, $5.1 billion, and community colleges, $1.7. The state provides 100% of the funding for senior colleges. The state and the city provide 50% for each for the community college. So with that in mind, the state share of the total request is nearly $6 billion, and the city share is about $850 million. The total hard dollar portion of the request is $292 million. We are also requesting approximately $89 million reserve funds from the borough presidents and the city council. These funds are allotted on an annual basis only. This chart is a more detailed breakdown of the request. It gives you the same information. The total request is $6.8 billion. The state share is $5.9. This covers the senior colleges and the state shares for the community colleges. The city portion is approximately $850 million for the community college, and the first-year request totals $1.6 billion. Matt gave you a description of the rest of the process, but the next step for us, if this is approved tonight, we will put this together, get a description of the hundreds of projects, put that in a 150-page book, which everybody will get a copy of. I've finished my presentation. I'd just like to take a minute to thank CUNY's Capital Budget Director, Gwen Perlman, and the staff, and I'd like to thank all the college presidents for this 6-month arduous task. So I thank you, and I've completed my report.
Thank you. I'll second the motion. So the motion is on the floor. Are there questions for Vice Chancellor Bergstrom or the committee? Yes, Trustee Beal?
I know I should know the answer to this, but does the university have a WMBE program with regard to its capital budget?
Yes, we do, and the goal set by the governor is 30%, and at the moment, we're higher than that.
Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments about the matter, the 5-year capital budget request?
That concludes my report.
If not, all in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed, abstentions? That is adopted. Anything else, Trustee?
Nothing else, thank you.
Thank you. I will present a non-action item just for informational purposes only. I want to give the board notice of actions taken by the Board of Trustees Executive Committee on November 2nd, 2015, on 2 items recommended by the Chancellor. The Executive Committee determined unanimously that it would be detrimental to the university to delay the advancement of these matters. The actions taken by the Executive Committee are described starting on page 26 of your calendars, and we are required to inform the full board of actions taken by the Executive Committee, which you'll find on page 26 of your board book. Now I have an additional action item. Hunter College President Jennifer Rabb has proposed that 3 honorary degrees be presented for consideration that would be awarded at the winter commencement in mid-January 2016. The nominations were reviewed and approved by the Executive Vice Chancellor and University Provost Vita Rabinowitz. Background materials were provided in advance of this meeting. The Chancellor recommends their approval by the board. The item is listed on page 27 of your calendars if you want to see the who those honorary degrees would be presented to. So I'll move the presentation of those honorary degrees. May I have a second?
I second those items.
Are there any questions about the Hunter's honorary degrees? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? That item number 8 is adopted. Item number 9 concerns amendments to the guidelines for presidential searches. I want to thank Chancellor Milliken for proposing revisions to the presidential search guidelines that will strengthen the processes and procedures utilized. An earlier draft was shared with the board's Committee on Faculty, Staff, and Administration, and a number of trustees have already provided input. The Chancellor and General Counsel Rick Schaefer sought fuller input from trustees including Valerie Beal, Joseph Awaji, and Terrence Martell. The item is listed starting on page 27 of your calendars if you want to see what the new proposed guidelines look like. So I would like to move the adoption of the amended guidelines on presidential searches that are starting on page 27 of your board calendars.
I second that item.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments on the revised guidelines? Trustee Martell?
Just a quick comment to thank the Chancellor and Vice Chair Schaefer, Vice Chancellor Schaefer, for reaching out in a positive way and helping to develop these revised guidelines, which I think were an appropriate compromise given the issues at hand. So thank you all.
All right. Chancellor, do you have any comment? Further comments or questions about the revised guidelines? Yes.
I also like to say thanks to Vice Chancellor Rick Schaefer for also including our students with these guidelines, and we do accept it and agree with it.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. All in favor of the amended guidelines, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The amended guidelines are adopted. Item number 10, I would like to present for the board's action. This is a resolution that asks the Chancellor to develop a plan to restructure the CUNY School of Public Health as a unified graduate school. The CUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy would be the name of the school. This is an essential step forward in order to secure re-accreditation from the Council on Educators of Public Health and to ensure the well-being and further enhancement of the school. I want to thank Vice Chancellor and University Provost Vita Rabinowitz and all the college presidents who were involved with the current consortial model and for their cooperation during this transition period. The full resolution is listed starting on page 31 of your calendars, and I would like to move it. Is there a second?
I second that item.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions about this resolution on page 31? Do you want to say anything? No. All right, if you're ready to consider it, I ask all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Abstentions? All right, the item has been adopted. That concludes the business that for this first public session. We'll now go into executive session regarding personnel matters. And we expect to have a brief public session again following the executive session. I'd like to call this public session of the board to order. We have one resolution to deal with that I would like to move. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York approve the appointment of Dr. Mary Pearl as Interim Dean of Macaulay Honors College, starting on January 30th, 2016, at a compensation to be recommended by the Chancellor to the Board subject to financial ability. The explanation for this, Dr. Ann Kirshner will step down as the Dean of Macaulay Honors College effective January 30th, 2016. Pending a completion of a search for a new dean, Dr. Mary Pearl will serve as the interim dean if you approve this resolution. Dr. Pearl was appointed the Macaulay Honors College first provost and senior associate dean in March 2014. Since July 2012, Dr. Pearl served as the associate dean and chief academic officer of the college, while also a professor of biology at Brooklyn College. Dr. Pearl is a renowned scientist, environmentalist, and educator who was the first dean and administrative vice president of SUNY Stony Brook, Southampton. She also served as president of the EcoHealth Alliance, helping build careers of scientists and educators in 20 high biodiversity countries around the world. She is also a founding faculty member for the master's program on design for social innovation at the School for Visual Arts. The Chancellor strongly recommends her appointment as interim dean. May I have a second? Second. Are there any questions or comments about this resolution? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? Thank you. The resolution is adopted. Welcome, Dr. Pearl.
I'd like to thank you, Chancellor Milliken as well, Chairman Schmidt, and the rest of the board for your confidence in my leadership. As a lifelong New Yorker and the granddaughter of a proud City College graduate, it is a particular pleasure for me to be asked to serve CUNY in this way. Before any other comments, I want to thank my dear friend Ann Kirshner, whose enthusiasm and passionate commitment to the advancement of Macaulay's honor students has been inspiring. I've appreciated her openness, her flexibility, and the culture she's created at Macaulay of innovation. It's allowed me to dream up and launch programs beyond what I thought possible when I arrived a little over 3 years ago. So I'm really excited to build on Macaulay's achievements and will not look at this interim appointment as an interlude for stasis, but as a time when we must not lose any momentum in our advancement. I'm very inspired by Chancellor Milliken's commitment to a digital and international CUNY, and I'll seek to provide our students with an ever more exhilarating and transformational experience in these areas. I also hope that Macaulay can share with our CUNY partner institutions a series of proof-of-concept programs in higher education that can spark innovation and success on other campuses. I just conclude by saying, for anyone interested in the future harmony and prosperity of our region, there's not a more exciting place to be than working with some of CUNY's most hardworking, talented, and driven students. I look forward to making wonderful things happen over the next few months, working together with Macaulay's Foundation Board, our Advisory Council, students, faculty, and staff, as well as with Chancellor Milliken and the leaders of CUNY Central, and of course my many enthusiastic colleagues throughout the CUNY system who have already been such a great pleasure to work with. So thank you again very much.
Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. Charlie, do you have something?
I do. I have a resolution of appreciation, which goes thusly. Whereas Dr. Ann Kirshner was designated Dean of Macaulay Honors College at CUNY by Chancellor Matthew Goldstein in June 2006 with the unanimous approval of the Board of Trustees, and whereas student achievement at Macaulay Honors College soared under her leadership as students competed for and were awarded 73 prestigious fellowships, including 2 Rhodes Scholars, 5 Truman Fellows, and 36 Fulbrights. And whereas Dr. Kirshner developed signature leadership programs such as the Goldsmith Scholars, the Revson Scholars, the Keenan Fellows, and the Hertog Scholars. And whereas, building on her background as an entrepreneur in media and technology, Dr. Kirshner launched the Macaulay New Media Lab and was awarded one of New York State's 2020 grants to develop a digital media incubator and curriculum in partnership with Hostos Community College and Lehman College. And whereas Dr. Kirshner began her career as a lecturer in Victorian literature at Princeton University, where she earned a PhD in English, and as an entrepreneur in media and technology, she launched satellite and internet businesses for the National Football League and Columbia University's online education company, Fathom. And whereas, as writer and frequent contributor in conferences and publications on education and technology, Dean Kirshner was named one of New York Magazine's Millennium New Yorkers, and she is the author of Sailor's Gift, the story of her mother's wartime rescue of letters from Nazi labor camps, where her mother was interred, by the way, whereby the original letters are in the permanent collection of the New York Public Library. And whereas Chancellor James B. Milliken has praised Dean Kirshner's outstanding leadership of Macaulay Honors College, noting that the college went from a program to one of the few degree-granting honors colleges in the country. Appreciation and applications increased by 80%, and Macaulay has become one of America's most competitive honors colleges. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York expresses its heartfelt appreciation to Dr. Ann Kirshner for her exemplary dedication and distinguished leadership as Dean of Macaulay Honors College, and for continuing to serve the university in her new post as Special Advisor to the Chancellor for Strategic Partnerships, building affiliations in key sectors of the economy to provide enhanced opportunities for our students and graduates.
The hour is late, so I will simply say a heartfelt thank you. First of all of those things happened not because of me, but because of the remarkable team at Macaulay, Mary, you included, and all the other wonderful people that we work with every single day. It's an honor to have led Macaulay for 10 years. I never stayed anywhere that long. And the reward is the friendship and the affection and the gratitude of just the most remarkable young men and women I have ever met. To work at CUNY is to be part of a remarkable mission about the future of education, not only in New York, but in the United States. And I couldn't be prouder than I am at what we've all accomplished together. So thank you, Trustee Shorter. Thank you, all the trustees. Thank you, Chancellor Milliken, for the opportunity to continue to serve CUNY, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I think we might have missed one of your books that might be a movie on the wife of Wyatt Earp.
Lady at the OK Corral,
Yeah,
the true
exactly.
story of Josephine Marcus Earp. Thank you very much, Trustee Berry.
Very good read.
That concludes our business. This public meeting is adjourned.